Today is my favorite day because I love factoring by using what's called the box trick. And so I'm going to show you this box trick. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things to teach and to show you and to share with you because it's a great way to factor, and it can be used for several different methods too, which I will end up showing you a little later on, maybe not today, but maybe in class or in a future video. But let's just go through the basics of the box trick. And basically how this works is you end up with two situations. You could either end up with situation number 1 right here, okay, or situation number 2. And basically the main difference is that they're exactly the same. You have something that's squared, basically something that's not, and then just a number at the end, okay? And the A, B, and C are just those generic numbers that could be in front of like the x squared, in front of the x, or that's the little loner number at the end of the expression, okay? And what's special about today, box trick specifically, I'm going to do box trick over the course of 2 days, but today's is specifically focusing on when we use the box trick and we have this pattern of x squared, x, and then just a regular number, and the second sign is a plus, okay? So there's two situations. You could have a plus and plus, okay, so first sign's plus, second sign's plus, or you could have first sign's minus and second sign's plus. But what you always want to do is you want to start with the second sign, because that's going to tell you a lot of things here, okay? So start by looking at the second sign. Today we're only going to look at ones that where the second sign is plus, but eventually I'll mix them up. But that's where you always want to start, at the second sign. And what it tells us is it tells us this. So the second sign is going to apply. This big box is going to apply to both equations here. And the second sign tells us that when we factor, we're going to end up with two parentheses, okay, at the end. And that tells us that when we factor, both of the parentheses will have the same sign, okay? And the way we figure out which sign we're going to get is we jump over to here and we look at the first sign. And whatever the first sign is, that's the sign that's gonna go in the parenthesis, okay? So if we get a situation number 1, we're gonna end up with two parentheses that both have a plus here, okay? And if we end up in situation 2, we're gonna end up with two parentheses that are both going to have minus. So when our second sign is a plus, the first property is that both parentheses will have the same sign. The way you figure out which sign is you look at what the first sign is. Okay. The second sign, this plus, also tells us something special. It tells us that we're going to add A and C. We're going to add our orange numbers together to get the B in the middle. So we're going to neglect the sign at first. We just want to add the two numbers to be able to get C. So here's how this is. Let's work this out, because I think me just talking about it is a little confusing here. So watch me in the box trick. There's some details that are going to be a little bit easier to figure out once I start going here. So let's look at number 1. So the directions are to factor, and it follows the pattern, right? That I have something squared, I have an x that's not squared, so just a regular x, and then I have a number at the end, okay? So what I do is I look at the back sign. My back sign is a plus, so that tells me that in the end for my final answer, so let's move this a little lower. In the end for my final answer, I'm going to end up with two parentheses that have the same sign. Which sign? Well, to determine which sign, I go to this first slot right here, and since it's a plus, both of these guys are going to be a plus. And now we start filling in. So here's how we fill in. We want to look at what the number A is. So in this case, the number A is a 1, because there's nothing written here. So remember, when there's nothing written, we call that a 1. And my number C is 28. Okay, so A is 1, and C is 28. So what I want to do is, let's start with A. I want to look at A, and I want to think of two numbers, or all the combinations of two numbers that can multiply to get 1. Lucky for us, there's only one combination, right? 1 times 1. Now I want to think of a combination that gives me 28. How about, first thing that comes to mind is 7 and 4, okay? So Let's try 7 and 4. So the way the box tricks work is, if you see, I've created a mini box here with the two numbers. So this 1 and 1 came from 1 times 1 multiplies to that 1 in the front of x squared. 7 times 4 multiplies to this 28 here at the end, okay? And the way the box tricks works is, so stop writing notes, watch me here. You're going to start at this end, and you're going to go 1 times 4 is 4. Start at the bottom corner. 1 times 7 is 7, okay? And what I told you in this top part here is that you're going to add the A and C together to get B, okay? So we're adding to try and get B. So if I add 7 and 4, I get 11. Does 11 match up with 16? No, it doesn't, okay? So 7 and 4 are not a good combination for it. Let's try another combination. Maybe let's try, how about 14 and 2 maybe? So 14 times 2 gets 28, so I'm going to start at this top corner. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 14 is 14. And if I add this together, I get 16, and oh, it matches up, okay? Another something you can remember that you have to multiply when you're making this cross is, remember when we time something, we use an x sometimes. So you're creating an x, and so that's supposed to remind you you're multiplying the things together. So 1 times 2, 1 times 14, and once you get their products, you're adding them together to try and get the middle number. Okay, so 14 times 2 does equal 16. So here's how this works out when we're trying to convert it into a parenthesis. So right here, going across, okay, we go 1x plus 14, 1x plus 2. So once you've established the 2, when you write the final answer, you go across. So final answer for this would be x plus 14 and x plus 2. So if you don't believe me, go and multiply this out. If you FOIL this answer out, you should end up getting the same, or the original problem again. Let's try another one like this, okay? So let's figure out what my A is. Let's figure out what my C is. Okay. So A in this problem is 1, because A is the number in front of y squared, and since there's nothing written there, we know it's 1. C is 8. Okay, so what we do is we look at this back sign. It's a plus, so that tells me my final answer is going to end up being same sign. To figure out what sign that is, I look at the first sign, so it's minus, minus. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to get to 1 is 1 and 1. Two numbers that multiply to get to 8, I don't know. Let's try 4 and 2. Okay, so using my box trick, I've created this box. I go from this corner, 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. And even though the sign in the front is a minus, it doesn't matter. All that matters is the sign in the back. The minus just tells me I'm going to have minus minus at the end, but this back sign tells me I'm going to add these two at the end together. So 4 plus 2 ends up being 6, but that doesn't match up with my middle number, so this can't be the combination. Let's try another combination of 8. Let's try maybe 8 times 1. Okay. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 8 is 8. If I add these together, I get 9. So this is the combination. That's the one, okay? So the way that we will work this out is we go across. So here's a parenthesis. 1x minus 8. 1x minus 1. So again, the only time you guys, oh, actually, let's finish out this problem. I'm sorry. So we have x minus 8. That's what we get from going across here. Then the last one is x minus 1. So final factoring for this is x minus 8, x minus 1. So what I was starting to say was, don't forget, you guys, that the only purpose for us making this x is just to do the multiplying to see what we have to get for the middle number. When you write the final answer, you're writing the final answers going across. Okay, So that's usually what people get a little mixed up with. So the only purpose for making that x is just to figure out if we add up to get the middle number. Final answer means we're going across. Let's try another one. Oops, I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try another one. Number 3. So my A is 1. Okay. My B is 20. Sorry, my C is 20. So I have 1 can go 1 and 1. 20 can go, I don't know, let's try 5 and 4 maybe. Okay. Looking at my back sign, I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses with the same sign. Which sign is it? I go to here, the first sign where my cursor is, and it's going to end up being plus plus because that's what my first sign is. And then here we go. So the only purpose for the x is just to multiply going diagonal. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. If I add these guys together, I end up getting 9, which is the middle number. So yay, I got it on the first try. Okay, so to write the final answer, you go across here. So I'm circling them so that you remember. These are what goes in the parentheses. So we have 1x plus 5, 1x plus 4. So there's my final answer for this guy. Okay. Alright, hopefully this is getting a little bit better for you guys. Let's try another example, number 4. I just want to keep doing these examples with you guys so you can see, and then hopefully it will get better for you. Okay, so here we go. This number 4 is a little different only because there's 2 variables, but it's not a big deal. All that happens when it's 2 variables is this happens. So back sign is plus, so I'm going to have 2 parentheses with the same sign. The sign I'm using is minus, so I'm going to stick the minus signs in there. All that happens when you have 2 variables is you're going to have a variable on each end when you have a final answer. See how all our final answers only have x right in the front? X plus 14, x plus 2, x minus 8, x minus 1. All that happens is because there's 2 variables on each end, I have an x at the end of this one and a y there, an x and a y. So that's what happens when there's 2 variables. You just put them at the end of the, you'll have 2 in your final answer. But you treat it the exact same way, okay? So here's my A. My A is 1. My C is 21. So 1 we know is 1 and 1. 21, first thing that comes to mind for me is 7 and 3, okay? So 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 7 is 7. If I add these guys up, I get 10, which is, yes, the middle number. So I don't have to keep going anymore. Here we go. To write our final answer, here's what happens. You just go across. So we have 1x minus 7y, 1x minus 3y. And then there's our final answer. And if you don't believe me, multiply it out, you'll get to the beginning answer, okay? And that's how you can check to make sure you have the right answer, is by multiplying or FOILing your final answer to get the original problem again. Let's try a few more examples because I just want to make sure once you get down the pattern of what to do for each of them, they're really simple to do, I think. The hardest part you'll have is just trying to figure out the factors to make the middle part work, but let's get the pattern of how to do these down. So let's try number 5. Okay, and so let's label our A is 1, right, because there's no number in front of m squared, and our C is 5. Okay, so I want to go multiples of 1, 1 and 1, okay? Things that multiply to get 5 is 5 and 1, so I've created my box. Looking at my back sign, it's a plus. Oops. Sorry, looking at my back sign, it's a plus, so I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses with the same sign. Which sign do I have? Take some time let me give you a few seconds to figure out which sign is going to be inside there. So it's going to be minus minus, okay, because again this back sign is plus, so it tells me the parentheses have to have the same sign. The way I figure that out is I look at the first sign, so it's minus minus, okay, And so here we go. So these are pretty much the only factors, 1 and 1 and 5 and 1, because they're both prime numbers. So let's see what happens here. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 5 is 5. And because this back sign's a plus, I'm adding to get the middle number. But I got 6. And these are the only factors for 1 and the only factors for 5. And so I'm kind of stuck because there's nothing else I can do to make this work. And you know what? That's what happens sometimes. So sometimes it's going to end up like that where they may not work at all. So see, I'm erasing my parentheses here. And when that happens, when you've run out of combinations and you cannot find anything that's going to work anymore, all you write here is prime, because there's nothing you can do to factor that anymore. It's as simple as possible. Okay, so there was no combinations I could come up with to be able to get 3 in the middle, so this is a prime one. Okay, I realized that I'm a silly person and I wrote number 6 and 7 are the same problem here, so let me erase that. I just realized that right now. Sorry about that. And let's work on number 6. So number 6 looks like it's weird. First off, because I put a 124 in there. And then second, because the y squared is in the back. That's okay that it's in the back. I'm going to just tell you, so listen right now. Since the y squared is in the back, all that tells me is that when I have my final parentheses, my y squared has to be in the back, or my y's have to be in the back of each parenthesis, okay? So if the y squared was first, which is like most of the ones we've been dealing with, we've been putting the variable in the first part of the thing, but you have to still observe the order, okay? So this should be 35y, not 124 minus 35. So you want to observe the order. So if the y squared's in the back, then the final answer is going to have a y in the back, and then this front number will be just a number. Okay, but we treat it the same way. So second sign is plus, so I'm going to call this, I'm going to say that they're the same sign. Look at what the first sign is. It's a minus, so they're both going to be minus minus. Okay, so let's see. I know the back part, y squared for c is 1, so 1 and 1. For 124, there's lots of factors I could have for that. Let's see, 124 divided by 2 could be 62 and 2. Is that right? Yep. So let's try 62 and 2. Okay, so if I go 62 times 1, I get 62. 2 times 1 is 2. If I add those guys together, I get 64, and that's definitely not 35 in the middle there. So those cannot be the factors. Let's try another combination. Let's see what 124 goes into when I go 4. So if I go 4, I get 3, 12, 4, so 31. So let's try 4 and 31. 4 times 1 is 4. 31 times 1 is 31. If I add those together, I get 35. So here we go, going across, I get 4 minus 1y. Remember, the y has to go in the back because the y squared is there. 31 minus y. And that's it. Okay.